Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Welcome back to Wisdom of Bhagavad Gita sessions, and currently we are looking at chapter 8, which is entitled Attaining the Supreme. And in Sanskrit, it is called Akshara Brahma Yoga. Last week, we have covered up to verse number 13. And we saw in the last session that in the first two verses of chapter 8, Arjuna asked several questions. He asked, what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? Adibhuta, Adidaiva, Adhiyatnya? And where does Adhiyatnya reside? And how do we remember Krishna at the time of death? So Lord Shri Krishna immediately replied to these answers, to these questions. So what did he mention? What is Brahman? What is Brahman? What answer did he give?
Atma Prabhuji, you can
Yes,
say
that's
spirit,
correct.
soul.
Yes, the indestructible living entity is called Brahman. That is what he mentioned. And of course, Krishna is also Brahman, but he's Para Brahman. So he is also indestructible, but he's beyond Brahman. He's Para Brahman. What is Adhyatma? What is the answer he gave about Adhyatma? Anyone?
Service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes, Adhyatma is eternal nature. Adhyatma is our eternal nature. And what is that eternal nature? It is serving the Supreme Lord. And then he answered, what is karma? So what answer did he give? What is karma? Someone who hasn't answered yet? What is karma?
Action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entities is called karma.
Yes. Excellent. So karma is any activity that will generate this material body. So we create the activities, then we get reactions, and then our next body is created. So any activity that is creating these bodies is called karma. Then what did he mention about Adibhuta? Adibhuta?
Material manifestations.
Yes. Adibhuta means this constantly changing material world. And especially this body is referred to as Adibhuta. And then what is the answer for Adhidaiva? What is Adhidaiva?
It's all the universal form, the demigods.
Yes. So Adhidaiva means the universal form, which includes all the devatas and their different planets. That is Adhidaiva. What is the answer for what is Adhiyajna? Someone who hasn't answered yet can answer. What is Adhiyajna? Adhiyajna.
He referred to the sacrifices.
Yeah, sacrifices, but who's Adhiyajna? Yajna means sacrifices. But who's the Lord of all the sacrifices? Rasaraj?
He is the Supreme Lord.
Okay.
Is Adi Agni?
Yes, Supreme Lord. Sorry, there was some background noise. That's why okay.
Sorry, Prabhu, this is my son actually.
Yeah, that's fine.
Apologies.
Okay.
Apologies.
But I received the answer from you. Good. So Adhi Yajna is the Paramatma in every embodied living entity. That Krishna himself is Adhi Yajna. And where does he reside? He resides in the heart of everyone. And how do we remember Krishna at the time of death? That was the last question. And he started answering that elaborately. So he mentioned that one who remembers the Supreme Lord at the time of death, he will attain the Supreme Lord. So he will go back to the Supreme Lord's planet. But if someone remembers something else apart from the Supreme Lord, then what will happen to that? That he answers in the next verse. And he says that whatever one's state of mind at the time of death, that determines the destination attained in the next life. So if you remember Krishna, you go back to Krishna. If you remember something else, you remain here in this material world. And based on what you remembered at the time of death, you get that kind of form. So we saw the story of Bharat Maharaj, how Bharat Maharaj became a deer because he remembered the deer at the time of death. And how do we remember? Because this is just the background that what happens at the time of death. But the original question was, how do you remember Krishna at the time of death? So that Krishna answered afterwards. He said that the death can come at any time. We do not have control that when the death will come. So the only option that we have, because death can come at any time, we have to remember Krishna every time. For every moment, if you remember Krishna, then the death can come at any time. But because we are remembering Krishna at that time, then because of that, we will go back to Godhead. So that is where he said, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. So we have to remember Krishna and then keep doing our duty. And when we should remember Krishna? So he said, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. We should always remember Krishna. So remember Krishna and then do our duty. And in that order, we have to actually give priority to remembering Krishna, and then we should keep doing our duty. And we looked at this exam metaphor where we looked at how 100% marks are required for passing. So Krishna doesn't like being even the second priority. He wants us to make him the first priority in our life. And when we do that, then at the time of death, we'll remember him. And then we looked at the Yoga Mishra Bhakti, because Krishna has already talked about the process of Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. So how using the Ashtanga Yoga, you can also attain the Supreme Lord. But there as well, all of the means which were mentioned, like pratyahar and then trying to control your breaths and everything, all of that, they were just instruments so that our meditation of the Supreme Lord, like remembering Krishna, can happen properly. So that is how we saw this Yoga Mishra Bhakti up to verse number 13. Now from here onwards, in the next 3 verses, Lord is going to talk about pure devotional service. How we can remember Krishna through bhakti. So earlier now, these 9 to 13, he mentioned how we can remember Krishna using yogic process. Now he's going to talk about how to remember Krishna, how to remember him using pure devotional service. So let us start with verse number 14. Ananyachetah satatam yo mam smarati nityashah tasyaham sulabha partha nityayuktasya yoginaha. Who wants to read the translation? Yes, Vibhor Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Uh, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain. O son of Partha, Pratha, because of this constant engagement in devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So here, this verse is actually describing pure devotional service. And it is quite interesting how he has used this word, Tasyaham sulabha partha. Sulabha. Sulabha means very easy. Now, till now, he has explained Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, then he has talked about Ashtanga Yoga, and he has also talked about some mixed devotional service where earlier he was using this Yoga Mishra Bhakti, but nowhere he mentioned that it is very easy. In fact, when we go to 12th chapter, he will say that this Jnana Yoga process is very, very difficult. He says, Klesho adhik taras tesham. So at that time he says klesha, it will be very, very difficult, and it will give you a lot of difficulties when you actually do some process. And in the 6th chapter, when he was talking about Ashtanga Yoga, at that time, Arjuna said that what process you are talking about, it looks almost impossible to follow that process. And Krishna agreed, yes, it is very difficult. But here, he is actually saying completely different. He's saying, Tasyaham sulabha partha. So this is very easy. And what is easy? This ananya chetaha satatam yoma smarati nityashaha. And for such person, if someone is doing ananya chetaha satatam yoma smarati nityashaha, for that person, tasyaham sulabha partha nitya yuktasya yogina. For that, it is easy to achieve the Supreme Lord. So for whom it is easy? So that is mentioned in that first line. For one who always remembers me without deviation. So two things which are mentioned, and they are very similar. Always and without deviation. So earlier as well, he said Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu, and here as well, he is saying Nityashaha. Nityashaha means always we have to remember. But then he has also said Ananya Cheta. Ananya Cheta means it is no one else apart from Krishna. So that is without deviation. So it is not that we are worshipping Krishna on one particular day. Then when Monday comes, we say that, oh, which other devata we can worship? Or Tuesday, which other devata we can go? So it is not like a shop. And we are trying to hedge our bets that just in case if Krishna doesn't help us, then maybe I should also put some word with Ganesha, put some word with Lord Shiva, put some word with some other devatas as well. So that just in case if this devata doesn't help me, at least this devata will help. If this doesn't help, then some other will help. No, that is not Ananya Cheta. Krishna is not liking that kind of bhakti. We have already seen, he has said 100% attention he requires. And that is not possible if we have our Cheta, our consciousness invested in all these different areas. He is saying that give me your full attention. Ananya Cheta he is expecting. So for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain. So this is a very wonderful verse that can guide us properly. So I have mentioned before as well, Bhagavad Gita is actually not teaching us the process of bhakti. Bhagavad Gita is teaching us the process of Ananya Bhakti. Ananya Bhakti is given. Bhagavad Gita is giving us the highest level of bhakti. So in Ananya Bhakti, you are single pointed focus. And in the second chapter onwards, he has been talking about the single pointed focus. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Ekeha kurunandana. Bahushaka hinantasya. Buddhayo avyavasayinam. He had said that we have to have single pointed focus. This 2 points also is not acceptable to Krishna. He's saying single pointed. So single pointed focus, and that is Ananya Cheta. That is Ananya Bhakti. He doesn't want just the normal mixed bhakti and bhakti where sometimes you are worshipping Krishna, sometimes you are just still thinking about some other devatas. No, Ananya Cheta is required. And for such a person, then it is very, very easy to get. So few points which are mentioned here. Krishna is easy to obtain for the one who always remembers. Satatam is mentioned as well as Nityashaha is mentioned in the first line. Twice. Same thing, but for emphasis, they have mentioned always remember. Satatam and Nityashaha. Then, without deviation of mind, Ananya Cheta is required. And Nitya Yukta, constantly engaged in devotional service. For such a person, then it is very, very easy to obtain the Supreme Lord. Sulabha. Sulabha is mentioned, easy to obtain. And this Ananya Cheta and Satatam Nityashaha, how to do that? So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is very wonderful story that comes in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. Once Lord Chaitanya went to evacuate, and when he came back, when he returned, he was holding his tongue. And people were asking by looking at Lord Chaitanya, why he's holding his tongue. He said, I just went to a filthy place and my tongue is so used to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So it was not stopping itself. And I was thinking why I should actually chant the holy name in such a filthy place. And because it was not stopping, I'm holding that tongue so that it doesn't vibrate and I'm trying to restrain it. But when he was saying like this, a small boy called Gopal, he came there and he spoke. And what did he say? Gopal said, no, 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 this is not right. What you are saying is not correct. He said that suppose if you're supposed to just die there on such a filthy place, will you say that, oh, because it is a filthy place, and though I'm dying, I will not chant the Lord's name? No, irrespective of whether it is filthy place or not, you will always take Lord's name. So, at all times, regardless of external purity, he said that we should always take Krishna's name. And then Lord Chaitanya agreed with him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have properly understood the philosophy. That's why you are my guru. And from today, you will be called as Gopal Guru. So that is how this Gopal was given the name of Gopal Guru. So Nityashaha, Satatam, we should not be thinking about where we should be chanting this name. That is why when in Kalisantrana Upanishad as well, when Narad Muni asked Brahmaji about how to actually go through this Kali Yuga, which is very difficult to go through, and how do we actually cross beyond it? So this Hare Krishna Mahamantra was given, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Narad Muni further asks, are there any rules and regulations while chanting? So Brahmaji says there are no rules and regulations. And this is also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime is showing that it can be chanted satatam, it can be chanted nityashaha. Always we can remember this name. And for such a person who is always remembering it without deviation of mind, constantly engaged in devotional service, for him, Krishna is Sulabha, very easy to obtain. So remember that for our own benefit, that we have to do without deviation and satata. Now let us look at what is mentioned further. Verse number 15. Mamupetya punarjanma dukhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanah samsiddhim paramam gatah. Who wants to read? Yes, Rasraj Prabhu, please go ahead. And then the next one, Shanti Mataji, you can.
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection.
Thank you. So this verse is talking about these two words that the devotees quote very, very frequently. Dukhalayam ashashvatam. That we say that this material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. Even when we actually take our journey of self-discovery course, even in the first 10 session itself, we introduce these two words, dukhalayam ashashvatam. That this material world is dukhalayam means dukha alaya. It is the house where only you can get dukkha. Just like granthalaya means a library where you get granthas, books, grantha alaya. So it is a place where you get books. And the temple is called Devalaya. So where it's a house or a place where you can meet the Supreme Lord, Deva. So similarly, if it is a Dukkhalaya, then it is a place where you get miseries. And this material world is called Dukkhalayam. That is the first quality of this material world. The second quality is mentioned is Ashashvatam. It is temporary. This material world is temporary, and we can see that. We see that many people around us, they leave their body. Our relatives, our grandfather, grandmother, or great-grandfather, great-grandmother, they have lived this world. So it is temporary. And anything, even when we are alive, whatever we get, even the happiness we get is very, very temporary. We get for few moments and then it is all gone. So that is why it is called Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. But it doesn't mean that when we say it is Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam, that we don't do anything to reduce the dukkha in the Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. That is not the purpose of saying that this material world is Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. We just don't say that, yeah, it is Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. That is why these problems are there. If that was the case, when in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was showing this grief and he was having this dukkha, and he was saying that I don't want to fight, and he was crying, his hands were trembling, his body was trembling, all of that. At that time, Krishna did not say, now this is the realization I wanted from you. You have really now understood that this material world is place of misery. Now you have realized everything. Now you can just, as you are saying, you should go to Himalayas. Now you are fit for meditation. No, he did not say that. What he asked him to do, how you can reduce this misery which is there in this material world. This material world is full of misery, just like a hospital is full of pain. Like the patient is aware of the pain that the patient is feeling, and the doctors are also aware that the pain which the patients are feeling. But then hospital, like the doctors doesn't say to the patients, hey, what do you expect in this hospital? Hospital is full of pain anyway. So when you are coming here, you should understand that you are going to be having some pain. So just tolerate it. Is that what doctor says? No. The doctor tries to reduce the pain, and the patient also cooperates in a way that we can reduce the pain. The same thing that we have to do, even though we are in Dukkhalayam, we have to actually do activities by which we can reduce our pain. So what is the root cause of the pain? What is the root cause of this dukkha? We have already seen the karma that we are doing, which is creating this body. So any activities that we have done in the past, those reactions are accumulated. And when these reactions are unfavorable to us, we say that we are dukkhi, we are unhappy, we are feeling misery. So it is not the dukkha that we are getting is a problem. Of course, that is a problem. But the root cause of that is the activity that we have done in the past, because of which we are getting the dukkha. So what we should do? So till now, the first 6 chapters we have seen where Lord Shri Krishna was mainly talking about karma yoga. So he was mentioning this karma yogic activities where we are trying to reduce the pain. He's saying that do activities in a way that you do not get these reactions. And if you do the activities in that way, then and which way it was mentioned that we have to offer the results to the Supreme Lord. That is in Karma Yoga. And in Bhakti Yoga, we do the activities as per Krishna's desire and his representative's desires. So that is our spiritual master. So if we do these activities in such a way that we are offering our results to Krishna or doing our activities themselves for Krishna, then those activities will not create dukkha. And that is the way that we can, even though we will remain in the material world, it will not remain dukkhalayam for us. Okay, but what about ashashvatam? Okay, we will remain here and we'll try to reduce our pain by doing the activities by which we are not creating the reactions which are giving us dukkha. That's one side. But still the ashashvatam part remains. So that is why Lord Shri Krishna is talking about this part when 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, we saw that how we can go to this from ashashvatam world to shashvat world, which is ashashvatam. Shashvatam means eternal. It is permanent. And ashashvatam means which is not permanent, which is not eternal, which means temporary. So we have to go from this temporary world to the eternal world. And this chapter is explaining us how we can attain that supreme, how we can attain that eternal world. And now as well in further verses, Lord Shri Krishna explains that further. And he actually contrasts the material world and the spiritual world. And then he explains how we should, how we can go from the material world to the spiritual world. He has already mentioned that earlier, but he will again emphasize that a little later in the chapter. So coming back to this verse, so such a person, so who is always remembering without deviation and constantly engaged in devotional service, such a person, for him, it is easy to obtain the Supreme Lord. And such a person goes back to Godhead and does not return to this material world, which is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. So what can we learn from this? Basic thing that we have already talked about, that this material world is place of miseries and it is temporary. So it is foolish to look for happiness in a place where only miseries are available, right? So this world is, this material world is place of miseries and it is temporary. So no one will be able to find any lasting happiness here. And if we want lasting happiness, then we have to go back to the spiritual world. And while we are here, we can do the activities in such a way that we do not create miseries for us. So this is what we can learn from this verse. Okay, then we can move on further. So the next verse, 16th verse. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartino arjuna mamupete tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate.
Hare Krishna. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So this is one of the famous verses. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartino arjuna. So Lord Shri Krishna is now creating this contrast that I was talking about earlier. So he's saying in this material world, no matter which planet you are going to, and you may be thinking that, oh, I'm in the earthly planet, but maybe I go to Swarga Loka and then I can enjoy there eternally. No. Brahma Bhuvana Loka. And this Swarga Loka is coming in between. So we are in Bhuloka, then there is a Bhuvar Loka, then Swarga Loka, then Mahar Loka, Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, and then Brahma Loka. And then there are 7 planetary systems down, which are Atala, Vitala, like Pathala, and all of those which are downwards. So he's not even talking about there. There you are anyway getting a lot of miseries. But on the upper planetary systems, you may be thinking that, okay, I will enjoy more and I will get permanent happiness. He says, no. Punaravartino Arjuna. So from the highest planet in the material world, which is the Brahma Loka, and down to the lowest, which is the Patala Loka, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. So that means they are temporary and they are full of miseries. So misery and temporariness both are there, no matter even to the highest planet you go. But one who attains to my abode, so only place where you can get this eternality. So Ashashvatam, from that Ashashvatam, you can go to Shashvata, is only one place. He says that one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So only when we go to Goloka or the spiritual world, Vaikuntha or Goloka, only then there is a possibility that we can get this eternal happiness that we are looking for. Otherwise, everywhere else, no matter whether we are going to the highest, even Brahma Loka as well, you will still get the same problem. Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. So let's go to the next one. Okay. Now he's giving a little bit more information about Brahma Loka. You may be actually, someone may be having this doubt. Okay, you're talking about Brahma Loka, and how come Brahma Loka is not, it's temporary? In Brahma Loka, Brahma lives for so long, trillions of years from our calculation. And Srila Prabhupada explains how many trillion years in the purport. But let us read the verse first. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Janaha. There were few hands raised before, but okay, we can just go with Sudananda Prabhuji now, and the next one, Margi Mataji, you can read the translation. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So these verses from 17 to 22, these verses are going to compare this material and spiritual worlds. And in that comparison, the Lord will glorify the spiritual world. So he's starting with this Brahmaloka. And he's saying that duration of the material universe is limited, even though we feel that it is unlimited from our calculation. But actually, just like we are living for 100 years, Brahma is also living for 100 years. It is just that his 100 years are much longer than our 100 years because the time moves at a different speed on different planetary systems. So how his calculation, how much is his 100 years? That calculation Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport. That one kalpa is 12 hours of Brahma's time, which is a day. So day is 12 hours and his night is also 12 hours. And that day of 12 hours or night of 12 hours is referred to a time period called kalpa. So that is one kalpa. And one kalpa has 1,000 yuga cycles. And what is a yuga cycle? It's a cycle of Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. So this is one cycle. And such 1,000 cycle is his only 12 hours of Brahma. And Kali Yuga, as you know, it is 4,32,000 years. Dwapar Yuga is 8,64,000 years. Treta Yuga is 1,029,000. So 1,029,000. So 1,296,000. And Satya Yuga is 1.728 million years. So lifespan of Brahma is this cycle, total of these 4 yugas into 1,000, and that is just 12 hours, into 2, that means 1 day. And then such you can actually calculate for his 100 years, which comes to around 311 trillion years, 40 billion years. 311 trillion, 40 billion years from our calculation. So that is the life of Brahma. But Srila Prabhupada compares, he mentions that this long duration that we are talking about, this Brahma's lifespan, which is 311 trillion, 40 billion years from our calculation, in terms of eternality, it is just a lightning flash, a fraction of a second. So then you can imagine that if that 311 trillion, 40 billion years is just a lightning flash in the terms of eternality, what is 100 years of our life means. That is why it is mentioned that it is just when we come back from the spiritual world here and then we go back, it will be as if we haven't even gone to the material world because it was just a lightning flash and we have come back. And another analogy which Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says, not actually analogy, he says that the causal ocean has innumerable Brahmas and they are like bubbles in Atlantic. Like there are in the Atlantic Ocean, there are lots of bubbles and those many Brahmas are there in the universe, in the causal ocean. So it is trying to emphasize, like this purport Srila Prabhupada is trying to emphasize, that even Brahma, who has this long life, he's also as insignificant as a bubble, and his lifespan is also insignificant like a lightning flash. So what to speak of us? So it is a temporary life, even though we think that the Brahma's life is eternal, but it is not eternal. It is just like a lightning flash. So it is Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna. So it is anywhere you go, it is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. It is temporary, it is full of miseries. So let us read further 18 and 19. We are going to read together and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Avyaktad Vyaktaya Sarva Prabhuvanta Haragame Ratriagame Praliyante Tatraiva Vyakta Samnyake. Who was next? Yeah, Margi Mataji, I think.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. And thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So, yeah, let's actually read the next one as well and then we'll talk. Bhutagrama sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratriagame vashah partha prabhuvatya haragame. Yes, Pamendra Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Again and again, when Brahma's days arrive, all living entities come into being. And with the arrivals of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So annihilation keeps on happening. So it is explaining that how the life is temporary. And there are multiple levels of annihilations happen. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport as well that at the death of the living entity, there is one kind of annihilation that happens, that our body goes and all our material things that we have accumulated, they get annihilated because we lose them. So at the time of death, the body is taken away. So that is one level of annihilation that happens. Then when the Brahma's day ends, then also there is a partial annihilation that happens. So the Bhuvar, Swarga, and Maharloka as well, all of that gets, actually Maharloka, but Bhuvar and Swarga at least, they get annihilated. And because of the heat that generates from it, the residents of Maharloka moves to Janaloka. But they don't get destroyed. And anyone else below the Earth planet also, they are also getting annihilated. So every 12 hours, like after every day of Brahma, the people are getting annihilated. Not only that, at the end of Brahma's life, 100 years, that happens, that 311 trillion, 40 billion years finishes. At that time, that everything gets annihilated, including from lower planet to higher planet, including Brahma's planet also gets annihilated. And then they became those who are at the very higher planetary systems and they have perfected their life, they will go back to Godhead at the time of that full annihilation. And those who are not yet perfected, who haven't yet perfected, they will go into the slumber and then they will get manifested again. So again and again, Bhutva Bhutva Praliyate has been mentioned. So again and again, they will get manifested and unmanifested. They will get created and annihilated. That is how it will continue in that continuous cycle that will go on. So let's go ahead and see. So why Krishna is mentioning here that someone may be too attached to the material world, and Krishna is trying to create this awaken or detachment and renunciation, saying that, hey, why you remain attached to this material world? See, I'm telling you that it is Dukhalayama Shashvatam. Plus, even if you are thinking that you will go to the Swarga Loka or even to Brahma Loka, it is still problematic because it is just like lightning flash and it is still Dukhalayama Shashvatam, and you will still get created and annihilated there. So it is still remaining a temporary place. So why you should just remain attached to such a material place? You should come to the spiritual world, and I'll explain to you the glories of spiritual world. That is what Krishna is saying, and he is explaining now further. Verse number 20. and 2021, both will read. Parasatasmat tu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yasa sarveshu bhuteshu nachatsu na vinashati. Yes, Vidushi Mataji.
Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Avyaktoksharha ityuktas tamahu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Yes, Vidhi Mataji, please go.
That which the Vedantists describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So here Krishna is explaining that place is my abode. Tad dhamam paramam mama. Mama, he has mentioned, it is my abode. Earlier he said that, yeah, we have talked about this material world, which is temporary and full of miseries, and where you take birth and death again, and you get manifested and manifested again. But there is a place where, in the 20th verse, he says, there is a place which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested nature. So you don't have to actually go into this cycle of creation and annihilation. And it is supreme and it is never annihilated. And when all of this world, like this material world, is annihilated, that part still remains. So he has said now, set a context that there is this material world, but there is also a place which is a spiritual world, which is eternal, which is not annihilated, which is transcendental, which is beyond this manifestation and unmanifestation process. And when everything is getting annihilated, it still remains. And then in the next verse, it says, that place is my abode. Krishna is saying, Tad Dhama Paramam Mama. And that which Vedantis are describing as unmanifest and infallible, so that place, which I have explained in the previous verse, Krishna is saying, that which is known as the supreme destination, that there is no destination beyond it, that place from which, having attained, no one comes back. So it is not that like in Swargaloka, you go, you enjoy for some time and then you again fall down. Nothing like that. So you go to spiritual world and then having attained it, one never returns. That is my supreme abode. That is Vaikuntha, that is Goloka. So that is how Lord Shri Krishna has has contrasted this material and spiritual world. So let us look at these differences that he has already identified, and we have spoken about it, but this will just give us a quick summary of that. So what did he mention about the material world? He said that it is temporary, it is full of misery, there are repeated birth and deaths from highest to lowest planets, and there is a constant creation and annihilation that happens. Whereas about the spiritual world, he mentioned that one never returns to this material world once we actually go back to the spiritual world. It is eternal, it is free from birth and death, it is infallible, it is full of bliss. We are looking for happiness, eternal happiness, and that is where we will get. It is full of bliss. And this place is never annihilated when the material world is getting annihilated. And it is unmanifested to mundane eyes. We cannot see it from our material eyes. It is transcendental and it is a supreme destination. There is no destination beyond it. So that is what Lord Shri Krishna is mentioning when he's contrasting this material and spiritual world. So he's a very good marketer of, obviously. If he would have just mentioned about the spiritual world, we wouldn't have understood it properly. So he first explains the problems of this material world. Just like any advertisement that goes, they first explain to you how you are in need first. And then they actually give you a product that you are in need, you have already understood, and now I'm giving you this product you should take. So that is how Krishna is also doing. Everyone is actually coming from Krishna. This advertising and marketing techniques are also coming from Krishna. He is giving us what are the problems that we are facing in this material world. That this is temporary, full of misery, it is getting annihilated, and all these problems which are there. But look, I'm going to offer you something else now. This is the spiritual world. There is an alternative to the material world that you can take. If you go there, you will never return. It is eternal, it is full of bliss, it is infallible, it is transcendental, it is never annihilated, it is supreme destination. Do you want it? And when we say yes, then he says, okay, I'll tell you how to get it. So then he explains in the next verse. What does he say? Purusha sapara partha bhaktya labhyas tvananyaya yasyantah sthani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. There's a tongue twister there. Okay, who wants to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I read?
Yes, Ashoka Mataji, please go ahead.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is inattainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading and everything is situated within him. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much.
Thank you. So, how is possible to attain? So he's saying now, the Lord is, it is possible to attain by unalloyed devotion. Unalloyed devotion with that Ananya Bhakti is what can actually attain the Supreme Lord. And this is what he has mentioned earlier as well, Ananya Chetaha, and here it is mentioned Ananya Bhaktya. So this Ananya Bhakti is again mentioned that if you want to go to the spiritual abode that I've just advertised to all of you, then you need to actually have Ananya Bhakti to me. And that is the only way to go back to Godhead. So then from 23 onwards, he explains how to actually go from the material world to material world to the spiritual world by different paths. So he explains by Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, then what kind of rules and regulations you have to follow. If you're doing karma yoga or karma kanda, what are the rules and regulations you have to follow? And then what is the situation for the devotees? So from 23 to 27, he mentions that. Let's go to verse number 23. Yatra kale tva anavrittim avrittim chaiva yoginah prayatayanti tam kalam vakshami bharatarshabha. Yes, Uma Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. O best of Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from the world, the yogi does or does not come back.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So now he is explaining that a yogi, when what kind of rules and regulations are applicable for them, for when they follow that, when they come, when they go back to the spiritual world, and sometimes when they are not able to follow, then they have to come back. So verse number 24, that is where he will start explaining that. Agnir Jyotirah Shuklaha Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Vido Janaha. Who wants to read?
Can I go, Prabhuji?
Yes, Shivani Mataji, please go.
Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery God in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So like whole long list of things which are given by the Lord for a yogi to go back to Godhead. And it is so difficult. Even if I ask this question in the exam, I can guarantee that half of the points that you will forget. So now imagine you have to remember all of this at the time of death, and that you have to choose your time of death properly. so that you can go back to Godhead. So it is so difficult. What is he saying? This path, when the yogi can go back to Godhead, is it has to be in light, influence of the fiery god. It has to be an auspicious moment of the day, the fortnight of waxing moon. You can't go into the waning moon's fortnight. Then it has to be 6 months when the sun is traveling to the north, that is Uttarayana. All of these things needs to actually come together. And then if you die in that period, at that particular good moment, then you can go back to Godhead. And that is also, when it is mentioned, it is you go back to God, but actually this yogi only reaches the Brahma Jyoti in that situation, even after following so many things. So basically, choosing the right time for a yogi is very hard. And that is why for the yogis to attain this, it takes many, many births for him to actually find this right moment, and he's able to control the time of death, and then at the right moment he can depart. So that is why it is very difficult. And it is mentioned that such a person, when he leaves the body, why it has to be under the influence of the fiery god? Because the fire god, what happens is that the when the living entity leaves the world at by following this process at a particular auspicious time, and in the influence of fiery god, at that time, the fire god takes the living entity to a certain point and hands over the living entity to another next devata, next demigod. And the next demigod will take your hand and again take you to the next level. And then they will actually hand it over to someone else. And slowly, slowly, that is how you will be passed like a pass the parcel. And finally, they will take you one devata to another, another to another, like that. Finally, you will reach Brahman. That is how this handover happens. That is why it has to be under the influence of the fiery god. If you miss that, the fire god says that I am not on duty now. Only when I am on duty, I will take you. You have chosen some different time. Sorry, come next time. So you take another birth, and then you go through that cycle again. Okay, now let's look at what happens when the time is missed. धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायन्नम् तत्र चान्द्रमसं ज्योतिर्योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते. Yes, Vibhor Prabhuji.
The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fourth night of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back.
Yes.
Hare
Thank
Krishna
you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. So here actually the process followed by mainly karma kandis. Karma kanda where people are trying to do lots of auspicious activities so that they can go to the higher and higher planets. So they will go to Swargaloka, and here it is mentioned that they can go up to the moon planet, Chandraloka. And after going there, they remain there for some time, but they come back. So they enjoy for some time, but they have to come back to the earthly planet again. And what are the rules which are mentioned? That that the someone passes in darkness or at night time during smoke, so there is foggy atmosphere. Fortnight of waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun is passing to the south. So that is Dakshinayanan that is going on. Then if someone passes like that, then you go to heavenly planets, enjoy for some time, but return to earth. That is what happens. So in 26th verse, Krishna has summarized this, both the things which are mentioned, the previous two verses, he has summarized. शुक्ल कृष्णे गति हेते जगता शाश्वते मते एकया यात्य नावृत्तिम अन्यया वर्तते पुनः. Someone wants to read? Someone who hasn't read yet? Okay. Again, Rasraj Prabhu. Okay, go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. According to Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. Haribo.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So here just summarize that if you follow these rules which are mentioned in the time of light and the auspicious time, the fiery god and all of that, if that happens, then you go back to Brahma Jyoti or the spiritual world. But if you fall into the other category like Dakshinayan at the night and whatever, then you have to come back. But then Arjuna will be thinking, Arey, I am on the battlefield. At any moment I can die. If you would have said earlier, I would have chosen the time to fight in Uttarayan. Now the Dakshinayan is going on. And now you're telling me that if Dakshinayan happens and if someone dies, then they will go back to higher planets and they will still come back. So they'll remain in the material world. So Krishna is saying, all right, don't worry. You are a devotee. For devotee, these rules are not applicable. So this is for yogis, jnanis, karmakhandis that I have mentioned. But for devotees, there is a special verse I'm going to tell you now, 27. नैते श्रुति पार्थ ज्ञानम् योगी मुह्यति कश्चन तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु योगयुक्तो भवार्जुन. Yes, Nimi Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in my devotion.
Yes, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Thank you, Mataji. So it is mentioned that for the devotees, they know these two paths, that in the light or at the darkness, what happens. But they are not bewildered because for them, these are not applicable. They can die anytime and they will attain Krishna Loka. They will go to Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka. So this is what is mentioned. So just to summarize this section that we have said, so these practitioners, if they are yogis or jnanis, the time period, if they are passing in light, etc., all those points which are mentioned, then they attain Brahma Jyoti. Karmakandis, they will generally go in darkness and in Dakshinayan and all these other points which were mentioned in the verse number 25, and they attain heavenly planet and they return to earth. But for devotee, time period doesn't matter. Anytime he can leave the body and they will attain Krishna Loka. So this is the process of bhakti, ananya bhakti. So the devotees don't have to really look at these rules and regulations of which point we should die. And that is why Krishna has said that we have to remember Krishna anytime. And anta kalecha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati somad bhavam yati nastartya samshaya. He said asaushaya. There is no doubt about it. Anytime you die, a devotee who is remembering me constantly, satatam nityashaha, ananya chetaha, all of those things which are mentioned in the previous verse as well, then it is for him, it is sulabha. It is easy for that person to attain Krishna Loka. Now, the 28th verse is like culmination of everything. He is mentioning that whatever that is available by following any other path, you can get it through bhakti process as well. So you don't have to worry about that you are something missing out. That this in material world currently you have this fear of missing out. FOMO. FOMO is quite popular. So fear of missing out. So Krishna is saying that if you're doing bhakti, you do not have to have a FOMO of what that yogi is getting, what that jnani is getting, what that karmakandi is getting. Will I get it? Krishna is saying, don't worry. You don't have to have any fear. Don't think that the yogis and jnanis will follow these rules and regulations and then they will achieve Brahma Jyoti by passing in light in Uttarayan period and in fairy god's influence and in the waxing moon. All of that is they have followed and they got it, but you didn't get it. No, you don't have to worry about that. So he gives this next verse. वेदेषु यज्ञेषु तपःसु चैव दानेषु यत् पुण्यफलं प्रदिष्टम् अत्येति तत्सर्वमिदं विदित्वा योगी परं स्थानमुपैति चाद्यम्.
May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not trapped of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. So here it is mentioned that a devotee automatically gets everything. That result of studying Vedas, like the Jnana Marga, result of performing sacrifices. The sacrifices are generally done by those who are doing karma kanda activities. Result of giving charity, again karma kanda activities, or result of philosophical and fruitive activities. So all of these processes that anyone is following, that if it is you're following karma kanda, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, any yoga process that you are following, or any scriptural path that you are following, whatever result that you are getting, devotee is automatically getting that. But they also get something which these other people cannot get, which Krishna says, yogi param sthanam upayati chadyam. That he attains all this, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode. No one else gets that. They are still going up to only Brahma Jyoti. But here he says that they will get all the results, but I'm going to give you extra as well. So there is no fear of missing out. In fact, all the other people will be having fear of missing out, because no matter how much they do, they will not be getting this unless and until they do Bhakti Yoga. And that is, and above all, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So this is the power of devotion. So full marketing of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is doing, that you are going to get everything that you can get in the other processes, but it is even better. You will get this supreme eternal abode. And he is not doing this marketing first time. If you remember, at the end of the 6th chapter as well, he had mentioned that Bhakti Yogi is the highest. He said at that time that he's greater than the ascetic, tapasvis, he's greater than the empiricist, the jnanis, he's greater than the fruity worker, the karmis. And here it is explained why he's greater than all of those. Because they get a particular result, but Bhakti Yogi get all of that plus more. So that is why it is saying, by the devotion, the devotee doesn't miss out anything. He automatically gains the results of all other paths without even desiring them. He doesn't even have to desire them. He automatically gets. But most important thing is, devotee gets more than that, which is he enters the spiritual world. What can we learn? So if you are not a devotee, then there are so many rules for going back to Godhead. And it is very, very difficult for you to pinpoint that exact time for leaving your body. But if you are a devotee, then only rule that we have to follow is always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. If you do that, then you can go back to Godhead. And this was the last verse of this chapter. But I have one more slide to explain how this 7th chapter and the 8th chapter was connected. It is like the summary slide, you can say, for this chapter. In the previous chapter, we saw the relationship between Lord Shri Krishna and the two energies, which is the living entity and the material nature. And the interactions between all these things was mentioned in the previous chapter, 7th chapter. But in this chapter, Krishna talks about various these different terms, like who's Brahman, who's Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, Adi Yagya, and all of that. So they are all related here. How? The living entity was talked about, and Krishna says that is Brahman. Material nature, he said it is Adi Bhuta. The Supreme Lord Krishna is Adi Daiva in the universal form, and he is also Adi Yajna as in the form of Paramatma. Lord Krishna controls the Adi Bhuta. The living entity does the karma by which he gets this material body, which is the Adi Bhuta. So we saw the term karma, what was the meaning of that? And his original duty though he's doing karma and he gets material nature and he gets entangled in Maya, but the other way was his eternal swabhava, eternal nature, adhyatma. If he does that, then he attains the Supreme Lord Krishna. And this chapter also gave us more information about this material world, Adibhuta, that it is temporary, it is full of miseries. And Krishna, where we are going to go, like Krishna Loka, that spiritual world is eternal and blissful. So that is how this 8th chapter is building on the knowledge which was given in the 7th chapter, and it gives much more. But the most important part of this chapter was how to attain the Supreme Lord. And that is why Srila Prabhupada has named this chapter as Attaining the Supreme. And really, this chapter is explaining to us that attaining the Supreme is sulabha. It is easy for one who is always remembering the Supreme Lord. And that is the process of remembering or attaining the Supreme. And there was this elaborate answer that Lord has given for this last question, which was asked, the 8th question by Arjuna, that how to attain the Supreme Lord or how to remember the Lord at the time of death. And the answer was that you have to remember Krishna, Ananya Chetaha, Nityasha, Satatam. So always remember Krishna, and automatically at the time of death as well, you'll remember Krishna. And if you do that, you'll come back to the spiritual world. So that is what is mentioned. And the 9th chapter will again talk further on process of bhakti. Remember, this is the bhakti section, Ananya Bhakti section. So there is a lot of emphasis on bhakti. Okay, so we have just finished 8th chapter. So in today's session and the previous session, whatever you have learned about attaining the Supreme, if there are any comments, reflections, questions, then we'll take them down. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any questions, comments, reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Ramamohan Prabhu.
So, Prabhuji, in the starting of the session, you mentioned the discussion between Brahma and Narada.
Yeah,
So,
Upanishad, yeah.
Yeah. So, Brahma says to Narada to proceed and to proceed in the spiritual path, you don't need to follow any rules. So I didn't.
No. I didn't say that. I said that
yeah.
for chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, there are no rules and regulations. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where, Prabhuji, can you please elaborate what that means? No rules, it reflects, Prabhuji.
Okay. So if you actually see any Vedic processes that we have, for example, a simple example of deity worship. If you have like deities at home, your parents will, like when we were child, then parents will say that, hey, you have to take your bath.
Yes.
Then after taking bath, you have to actually come and then take darshan of the Lord.
Yes,
So you can't just wake up and just enter the deity room and then like touch the Lord deities or start offering worship to them. It is not possible. So there are rules and regulations of doing everything.
Okay.
So if you want to actually do a yajna at home, and then there are rules and regulations. There is a process which is mentioned, what mantras to chant is mentioned, how to organize or arrange the yajna kunda is mentioned. And then all of this process has been mentioned. And all those rules and regulations we have to follow to get the result of that activity.
Understood.
But for chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, there are no such rules and regulations. So you can just wake up and you can chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And that is where I also gave you that example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was just went to evacuate as well. But still, Gopal Guru mentioned to him that, yeah, you can chant everywhere. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu already knew, but he was just glorifying the devotee, Gopal Guru. So similarly, we can understand that chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra can be done at anywhere, at any place, at any time. There are no such rules and regulations that you cannot do it at this time or you cannot do it at that time. Even there are a few other things that when somebody passes, like somebody dies at home in our relation, then people say that, oh, for now this 11 days or 13 days or 12 days, you are having sutak, and then you cannot do any worship or anything related to God.
Yeah.
But you can still chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that rule is not applicable for chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You can still chant in that period. Then Matajis have a particular period in the month when they are not allowed to do deity worship. So, but at that time they can still chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So there are no rules and regulations in which will stop us from chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Anyone, anytime, anywhere can chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That is the meaning of there are no rules and regulations for chanting the Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Very
Hare
well
Krishna.
explained. I understood now that meaning of the statement. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Are there any reflections or comments or any summary points that you any of you want to mention? Yes, Parminder Prabhuji.
I reckon our priorities are wrong. We are chasing Adi Bhuta more, which is material nature, and not focusing on what needs to be focused.
Yes. So we are focusing on Adi Bhuta. We are not focusing on Swabhava, which is our Adhyatma. When we go from karma to Adhyatma, then our life will get perfected. Very good. Thank you. Anyone else has any other points, reflections, comments?
This word is full of miseries. It is dukhale ashashvatam.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Ashoka Mataji. Hare Krishna. Any
Hare
other points from anyone else?
Prabhuji, I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yes, Rasraj.
You mentioned the yogis and jnanis, when they follow the process, they attain the Brahmjyoti and they never come back. So I'm a little confused. They don't come back. And for devotees, obviously they don't need to follow anything, and they can they just need to chant and remember Krishna at the time of death, and they attain the Krishna Loka. So what's the difference between Brahmjyoti and the Krishna Loka? Means in the both cases, either jnanis or devotees, they don't come back. So what's the difference?
Yeah. Good question, Prabhuji. So Brahmajyoti is the effulgence that is coming from the Supreme Lord's body. So Brahmajyoti, many people talk about this light, that they have seen the light. Even the self-realized, some of these yogis, they say that they have seen the light. What it means is that they have seen the Brahmajyoti, or the effulgence that is coming from the body. And Ishopanishad explains, when we do Bhakti Shastri, we actually talk about Ishopanishad. And there is a prayer where the devotee is talking about that, remove this light which is coming. For example, if someone, you're at night, you're approaching someone and they put a torch in front of you, like in your eyes, then you are not able to see who's the person holding the torch, because only the light is visible. So there is a prayer by the devotee where he's saying that remove this effulgence so that I can take your darshan. So Brahma Jyoti is coming like the effulgence from the body of the Supreme Lord. And someone who stops at that light itself, thinking that that is the Supreme, and they are focusing on the impersonal nature of the Supreme Lord, they think that this light which is coming, which is impersonal, and that is everything. For them, they attain only that level, because they are not actually approaching the personal form of the Lord. So they can only reach the impersonal form of the Lord, which is the Brahma Jyoti. But the devotees, because they are focusing on the personal form of the Lord, they don't actually are thinking about this light which is coming or the Brahma Jyoti. They are thinking about, I want to serve the Supreme Lord in the personal form. And they are trying to do that when they are in this material world, they are trying to serve the personal form of the Supreme Lord. So Krishna reciprocates accordingly. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. You want to go to Brahma Jyoti, you go to Brahma Jyoti. If you want to worship me and serve me in the personal form, then you come to my planet where you can actually do that personally. So the spiritual worlds and material world, they are all floating in this Brahma Jyoti, in this light which is coming from the body of the Supreme Lord. So they come out of this material world like these yogis, but they just remain in that void in between the material world and the spiritual world, which is also eternal because that's part of the spiritual world, but they are just floating in that light which is there. And that is called, that is the result for the impersonalists who are focusing on Brahma Jyoti. But the devotees who are focusing on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Bhagwan feature, they go beyond that Brahma Jyoti to the spiritual planets. And depending on the worshipable deity that they have been worshipping in their heart, they will go to the Lord Narasimha's planet, or Varaha's planet, or Buddha's planet, or Lord Ram's planet, or Krishna's planet, depending on their affinity that they are doing. And so that is the difference.
Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
fine.
Explaining.
Yes. Surananda Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So here Krishna is describing pure devotional service, and he is expecting full attention. He want full focus and the first one in the priority list, not even the second.
Correct. Nice. Very good. That is the essence. Yeah. Any other final thoughts, reflections, comments, or summary points for on this chapter 8?
That the thing that sticks with me, Prabhuji, is Satatam Nityasha Ananya Chetaha and Nitya Yuktaha. So something, since you said, is going in my mind, so something that sticks with me from this chapter.
Okay, that's very good. That we have to now start implementing.
Okay.
Yes, but this is the first part, right? That understanding that what Krishna's instruction are for all of us. Once we understand Krishna's instruction, only then we will be able to follow. So Krishna is asking us that I will make it easy for you, Sulabha. But for that, you do this, and then I will make it Sulabha. And once we understand that instruction, then we can actually start implementing. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? If not, then we will finish it here. And from the next session onwards, we will jump into the 9th chapter, the most confidential knowledge. It is the most important knowledge which is given, the most confidential knowledge in the 9th chapter. So we'll look at that from the next week. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Krishna.